Hello. So you can tell probably maybe from the assumed change in audio and video that I'm on my laptop today. So yesterday I pulled like I actually went through the cards and I was putting them all back, and I ended up finding this booster pack of Bloomborough cards that I got last year, maybe over a year ago, that I guess have just been marinating. So we're gonna do that booster pack thing, kind of like I did a few days ago. But all cards I haven't. Well, there may be cards I've seen, but you know, oh goodness, I was like, what is this really? Yeah, unopened. And we'll just see what's up. Apparently, Mercury is supposed to retrograde like in less than 12 hours. I didn't think I'd ever be paying this much attention to astrology again, but I guess I have been for the past few days at least, past week or so. All right, let's just get into it. Ooh, no token. We just have just the mouse click away. Ah, ha, ha. I get it because there's like mice. Play Magic on mobile. Magic to go. I do have an iced coffee, but this isn't necessarily an ICC. The number is 2702 if you're curious. All right, let's go. Let's go. Let's go. We have Cash Grab at the bottom of the deck. Mill 4 cards. You may put a permanent card from among the cards milled this way into your hand. If you control a squirrel or return the squirrel card to your hand this way, create a food token. A food token is an artifact that you can sacrifice to gain 3 life. Starting with the Cash Grab. This is interesting. The way that these acorns are just like falling out of the tree, it makes me think of the Drowned King from the Wild Unknown Alchemy with all the gold. And that was the whole like thing yesterday. But we'll see. We're starting with the Cash Grab. And I love that it's spelled CACHE rather than like CASH. Um well, okay. I was a little conflicted because squirrels, it's like the squirrel is going to be hoarding these, but they do so for a reason. They gather what they can, or they gather what they can in seasons of plenty to make sure that they have what they need in seasons of drought. So it's already like an energy of kind of playing the long game, or for yeah, playing the long game. Next we have the swamp. Oh, and it's like a full art swamp. So maybe it's less of a seasonal thing and more of a journey, right? I'm assuming there aren't many acorns in the swamp. I mean, there are trees in the swamp, so maybe there can be, but it's like you would have to risk on solid ground. If this isn't a season, though, it removes a sort of temporality, time. It removes an element of time, right? So now instead of needing a cash stash that can sustain you for like 3 to 5 months, you would need enough to make it through an area. And if it's an area that you've never been to before, you wouldn't necessarily know, unless you have a map, maybe, how long the journey would take to know how much you need to build up. But also, too, seasons change on their own. But the earth doesn't necessarily just shift beneath our feet, right? Like the earth is spinning and rotating and moving, but we, if we don't also move, we remain relatively in the same place, locally in the same place, cosmically in a different place because the planets are moving. But we would locally remain in the same place. Even if the seasons shift, even if the time goes and flows. And I mention that because, again, it's like if you stay in the swamp, you're not necessarily ever going to leave. Next is the fountain pour, which is another land. So you can add a basic mana. If you pay 2 mana, you can sacrifice a token to draw a card. If you pay 3, you can pay 1 life to create a 1/1 blue fish creature token. And if you pay 4, you can create a treasure token. She's giving like Ace of Cups. We saw the Ace of Cups yesterday. A few times, actually. It was, I think, the Ten of Wands. The Ten of Wands, something in the Ace of Cups. I don't remember what the card in the middle was. The page, not the page, the Knight of Wands, Embers of a Salamander. Ten of Wands, Knight of Wands, Ace of Cups. So this is like a journey, right? The squirrel is making a cash grab. This is like the Land Before Time. It's not, but it is, but it isn't. It isn't. It's like the squirrel is making their way to the fountain port. And the overflowing of these waters, question mark, is what makes the area around it like swampy. It's like constantly overflowing. So an area is like constantly in a state of semi-floodedness. The air is like really wet because there's all this water coming out. Lately, there was a reading recently where um the because it was another booster pack. I think it was the Dungeons and Dragons. I'm pretty sure it was where there was the clearing in the forest. Actually, there was another tie to that. I think it was in the same video. I don't know if it was the same reading. It feels like it was different readings. But the whole, like, you're walking in the forest for 4 days and then all of a sudden, like, you see a clearing or you see something that you didn't see 4 days ago. And it was that scent of the pear tree energy where it's like, if the fruits are ripened, you can follow the smell to get to this clearing. But the guides and the signposts in the forest all lead away or they lead out. There's no guidance to wherever that was. And it felt like that energy sort of popped up. I forget where. And I'm pretty sure I caught it like towards the end of the video. I was like, oh, this is like that. I'm pretty sure I didn't mention it though. But this is kind of giving me that. because you find the fountain in. Is this? It's not Magellan. Is it Magellan? Was Magellan the one that went looking for the fountain of youth, or is that Descartes? It may actually be Descartes. Let's see. Does it matter? No, it doesn't matter. Um, see, like they're stocking up their supplies to make it through the swamp to find the fountain port. Now, the thing about the fountain port is the fountain port gives, but if you seek something in particular, you have to pay a cost for it. Right? It has like 3 different costs you can pay to activate 3 different effects. Because this is a port and it's not just like a fountain, um, it's like it's connected to other places. Or it exists between multiple places, right? So if we think of the forest, it's like there's a way to get to the fountain port through the forest. Obviously, there's a way to get to it through the swamp. There's a way to get to it maybe through the valley that we saw. Next is Balin the Haymaker, a legendary rabbit warrior. You can tap 2 untapped tokens you control, add 1 mana of any color. Tap 3 untapped tokens you control to draw a card, and tap 4 untapped tokens you control to put 3+1/+1 counters on Balin the Haymaker. It gains trample until the end of turn. So it would have 7 power and 6 toughness if you tap 4 mana. It's associated with light, earth, and fire. There's Bela. And it has a scythe, which is interesting. That's like a mix between a carrot and a chili pepper. I mean, maybe it's like because it's a rabbit. I assume it looks more like a chili pepper than a carrot. I didn't have to do that. Just because it's a rabbit doesn't mean that it has to be a carrot. But yeah, that it's a carrot. Okay. But because carrots do grow like that. Um, but also it's given like chili pepper. What's interesting here is that again there are like multiple costs for multiple effects. Now you have to tap tokens for Balin. You can create food tokens. If you control a squirrel or return a squirrel, you get a food token. You can create treasure tokens from the fountain port. And so it would take multiple trips to the fountain so far with the cards that we have. It would take multiple trips to the fountain to have enough tokens to empower Balin the Haymaker. So already this is a journey in multiple parts. Or it's something that's revisited. And you can say that each time like you learn something different, you learn something new, right? In the major arcana, It's the fool's journey from the magician to the world. And at every step along the way, the fool gets something, right? But it doesn't, there's no inherent way to like know how many times the fool has to visit the magician to learn the tricks. Maybe the fool has to visit the magician like 4 times, and each time it masters a different element. You know, how many times the magician does the fool have to visit strength, or the hanged man, or the hermit? Right? How many times does the magician have to visit the hermit before it reaches the depths of its soul? Right, and it digs deeper every time. How many times does the magician have to visit the world, where you think you get it all figured out, and then all of a sudden, because of how your knowledge has grown and because of how you've grown, now you see the world in a completely different light, and you're capable of not only observing and witnessing but also understanding things that you had no capacity to understand before. And with that new capacity, you make another trip and you learn even more. So maybe in that way, it could be a thank goodness for retrogrades, right? Where we get multiple times to visit where each planet gets multiple passes over certain points in their pre-retrograde, retrograde, post-retrograde. And if it's a generational planet, like imagine there's something super important of Saturn and Aries that you're supposed to learn. And Saturn's going to retrograde Aries a few times before it leaves Aries. But imagine it didn't retrograde Aries and you had to wait like 28 to 30 years to get that again. Now, what's also interesting is if I just look at the cash grab as like the squirrel is grabbing the tokens or whatever it needs to pay itself, if acorns is a currency, but it's also food, then there's a sort of rationing that must be done. If the squirrel doesn't want to just use these at base, right? There's like free effects that you get just by coming across these energies. You get mana, you get to have Balin assist you, but you don't get all of the, extra stuff, the extras cost. Which is kind of interesting, low key. I had a thought yesterday as I'm thinking about life, right? And I had a thought that I was like, what if this happened? Because, like, when I was talking about the bumpers in the bowling alley that go down, or the rail along the wall, and at the rink when you're like skating in the middle, so you don't even hit the rails. I was like, what if that happened because there was some portion of the energy that was like being siphoned off to like put the bumpers up. And then part of me is like, okay, well, like energy is not so finite that would be the case. But there was the part of my brain that muses that was like, okay, but what if, right? Let's say I have a certain amount of currency and I'm using some of that currency to create safety nets that I don't need for an extended period of time. So I could spend a little. There's a show on Netflix I want to watch, only one show. I can get a 7-day free trial. I can binge the show in 2 days, spread it over 5, 6 to really enjoy it, and then cancel my membership because there's nothing else that I want. Right? So take what I can get for free and then cancel the membership. So now it's not coming out of my account when I don't need this service. So kind of that kind of energy, right? It's like more of the energy can go towards what it is that's like actually building and not being siphoned off to create these things or to distract myself in these ways to prolong a timeline that doesn't need to be prolonged. And I almost sent a voice note to my journey buddy, but I don't know what time I had the thought or how long I was musing on it. Maybe I'll still send her the voice note. I don't know. So I could see that sort of coming up here with the acorns being like both the source of food and the currency to get these additional effects. But it's like, are there going to be times where the squirrel, like, I don't, that's where things can get complicated, right? Because let's say that the squirrel really wants those extra fancy bells and whistles, so it chooses to starve because its currency is also the thing that sustains itself. But it's like, well, if you get stuck in the swamp because you don't have the energy to make it through because you're not eating any of the acorns to give yourself energy, if you don't make it to the fountain port or if you don't meet Balin to hand over that extra currency, then it doesn't matter, right? Now you've lost everything because you didn't want to spend anything. And if we think about mana or energy, there is enough media that I've consumed. There's an anime that I literally watched like yesterday. There's the audiobook series that I was listening to. There are other things. It's like for creatures that are made of mana, like their mana is their lifeblood. Typically, they have a fairly large store of it. But if offensively or defensively, if they're using that mana, it like threatens their life because that's their whole life. But it's like, if you don't use it to defend yourself, then you're gone anyway. I don't think, though, we necessarily. I mean, the whole thing is a metaphor anyway, right? It's not literal, but I guess the part of my brain that like ponders and wonders is like, with energetic currency, like, do we use it to survive? I mean, the question was like, it was framed in a way of like, I don't think we actually use like manifestation juice or good vibes or our, um, what's the word for like currency? The part of our vibration that is for exchange to survive. I could say that, but if we think of the toroidal field as a function of electromagnetic expression, there is a certain amount of electromagnetism that the body needs to like have the brain operate and the heart operate and these other like important to have the system functioning smoothly. And so if that toroidal field electromagnetism vibration aura whatever is the same currency that sort of like part of the soul that animates the body is what we also exchange to like manifest things if it's an exchange. I mean, when it comes to manifestation, I would almost think of it more as like a threshold type thing. But again, according to the audiobook, there is a certain point. It's a well, it's an aura power, so I guess it is similar. At some point, in order to interact with multiple auras, you have to like divvy up your whole aura. But after a certain point of evolution, you don't have to split your aura to interact with different ones. So you can approach each one with the full force of your aura. You can effectively like divide your attention without lessening it. Where earlier that may not have been the case. Right. So maybe that hits on something. Next, we have Harvest Right Host. We've seen this guy before. This is a rabbit citizen. Whenever Harvest Right Host or another rabbit you control enters, target creature you control is +1 more powerful until the end of turn. Then draw a card if this is the second time this ability has resolved this turn. Many paws grew this feast, and many paws should share it. I kind of love this. No, these are rabbits, not squirrels. We got more rabbits. I thought this was a squirrel for a second. This makes Balin the Haymaker. It gives Balin the Haymaker an almost mercenary type energy. It's like Balin the Haymaker goes out and it fights these battles, but the money that it makes, it sends back to its village. Not even necessarily a mercenary. It could just be like a knight in an army or a commander or an officer or whatever. It could be like a worker, and part of its wages go to support a family. But that many hands grew this feast, so many hands would share it. That is an energy of a recognition of everything that contributed to get Balin to the point where Balin could be where they are. It doesn't feel like the citizens that are participating in the harvest right or whatever are like also fighting with Balin. So their contribution isn't marked in that way. Their contribution is marked in the way that they have contributed to the cultivation of Balin's character and the culmination of who they are and how they operate in the world. Beauregard Mentor, another rabbit. We have all the rabbits and none of the squirrels to get the acorns. Beauregard Mentor's power and toughness are each equal to the number of creatures you control. I think I've seen this one too. On your pause. I've been fighting in these fields for more seasons than you've had hot dinners. Well, that's a long time. Assuming you're not like 3 years old and you get a hot dinner fairly frequently. That's a lot of seasons. Beauregard Mentor is as powerful as the number of creatures you control. If we again take the village, that's almost like an anime power of friendship type of, not even anime, it's like the power of love, right? When you do something for someone that you love, and especially like someone that needs you, it's that superhuman strength that the mother or the brother summons when another is in like trouble or some other application of it, right? Where you're like empowered by, and that puts an interesting twist on like a 10 of wands energy, to be empowered by that which one is responsible for, to rise to the occasion, to hold one's duty to be so sacred that it summons forth whatever is needed in order to make sure that something gets done. That, in contrast to a whole like, well, this isn't my problem and it's that's not my problem, and the only mouth that I have to feed in this village is mine, my partners, and my children. Like my household is the only house that I have to provide for. I'm the only one that blah 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 whatever. The rest is like, it's not my duty, it's not my responsibility, it's not my burden to bear. Now, granted, to each their own, and for each their own, right? If it's not someone's like purpose, you could say, to be everything for everyone or to be anything for everyone, then it wouldn't necessarily benefit them to take on more than what they're responsible for, right? Not every rabbit in the village is this Beauregard Mentor. Some of them are Balins. Some of them are cooks. Yeah, right. Somebody has to prepare the feast. Someone has to grow the crops. Like everyone has their own job. So it's not to, again, it's not to take on more just for the sake of taking on more. And just because we take on more doesn't necessarily mean that we'll be gifted or granted more, right? Like, let's say, like, firefighter. There we go. Right. As a firefighter, let's say that like there's a certain amount of strength that is beneficial in case you have to pull a burning log off. I don't know. I haven't fought fires in real life. Like there's like, you have to rip a car door off of, a car to save somebody or whatever. You have to perform some superhuman feat as a firefighter. So like you need strength and you need a certain fortitude so that, you can make it and you can rescue all the people that you rescue. And it's like to have like the calling of a firefighter and to be a firefighter and to be in those situations where you need it, that summons up the strength, the fortitude, the courage, the whatever you need to do your job, right? Now, if you want strength, if someone wants strength, they can't necessarily just like, oh, I want to be strong and have a certain amount of stamina, so I'm going to be a firefighter. And the same energy that wells within the firefighters is going to well within me when I go and do whatever that may not even be firefighter related, right? And it's like it doesn't happen because it's like that's not someone's burden to bear. And so there is no obligation to supply the strength, stamina, fortitude, courage, bravery, and whatever, especially if it's not used in that arena. You know what I mean? I saw something else. Someone shared it. It was a whole story about someone who's like really good at doing hair. And they were doing someone's hair, and the person was like, why don't you charge for this? Why don't you do this for a living? And the person was like, because this isn't my calling. Like, this is something that I do because I enjoy it. I'm good at it. And I like to, help out, blah, 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 whatever. But this isn't my calling. My calling lies elsewhere. And it was that whole, the sentiment was like, just because you're good at something doesn't necessarily mean it's your calling. And sometimes when we treat it as if it is, it could serve to be a distraction from our true calling and our true purpose, right? Now, again, it comes down to like discernment and stuff. But it's just that sort of like just because you're good at it doesn't necessarily mean it's your purpose. Just because you want it to be doesn't necessarily mean it's your purpose. At a certain level, we have free will and choice. And with that free will and choice, we can dedicate our time, energy, and efforts to learning whatever it is that we want to learn, to become proficient at whatever it is that we want to become proficient at. But it's like on the other side of that, whatever the motive force that doubles strength and endurance and whatever in times of need, that motive force isn't obligated to supply anything to anyone that doesn't have that calling. So, long story short, sometimes it is a burden to be dropped. Sometimes it's a responsibility to be dutifully carried. More rabbits? Stocking the pantry. I've seen this one too. Oh, this one has a squirrel on it. Whenever you put one or more +1/+1 counters on a creature you control, put a supply counter on stocking the pantry. For 2 mana, you can remove a supply counter from stocking the pantry to draw a card. So, sorting the seeds from the nuts. Squirrel folk expression meaning dwelling on unnecessary details. I would be like, "Oh, I guess squirrels are the gatherers," but that makes sense because they're squirrels. Sorting the seeds from the nuts. It means dwelling on unnecessary details. Is that shade? Are they like, okay, girl, we get it. Pull the next card. Or is that also applicable? Or maybe that expression approaches the dilemma of the acorn being both currency and food, right? Assuming that a nut and a seed are not the same. I know peanuts are legumes, so because I'm like, are nuts and seeds? Are nuts seeds? I feel like nuts are seeds. And maybe that's why it's like it means dwelling on unnecessary details. Are all nuts seeds? No, not all nuts are seeds, but all nuts are fruits. From a botanical perspective, a nut is a specific type of dry fruit with a hard outer shell and a single seed. While many common nuts, like walnuts, almonds, and cashews, are botanically classified as seeds, they are also technically drupes, a type of fruit or fruits with a hard shell. Girl, that what? Does that? No, not all nuts are seeds. A nut is, but all nuts are fruits. Okay. Not all nuts are seeds, but all nuts are fruits. A nut is it's this type of fruit that has a seed. Okay. Oh, when the squirrel folks said, "Girl, the detail is unnecessary," I should have just listened because that don't make no kind of sense to me. But maybe this solves the question of like which nuts are currency and which nuts are to be eaten. You could say for the nuts that are seeds, they can be used as currency because from a seed, something new can grow. For the nuts that are just fruits, they can be eaten because nothing will grow from those. It's almost a level. So it can be going back to the like at a certain point dividing your focus and attention is to weaken your attention to any specific thing, but after a certain point you become so good at multitasking that even if you divide your effort and attention you can bring your full self to multiple things, right? So maybe from the multiple things of it all, it's like it doesn't matter. But in another season, like let's say that circumstances dictate growth and you have a certain, like you have a limited number of space and an amount of food and amount of crop or harvest that you need to feed the village. At that point it may be important to know which nuts aren't actually seeds because it's like if you plant it, nothing will grow, and that spot could have been used to plant something that would have produced more. It's the situationality. Next, we have the pond prophet. It's a frog advisor creature. Okay. When pond prophet enters, draw a card. The rainfall brings us news of the world around us. I've learned a lot, but most of all, I've learned that it's very exciting out there. not the prophet. Have y'all seen the like TikToks or whatever about animals and nature being like weird or something? Like they know something that we don't know. My mom was talking about it, and then I saw like a YouTube video yesterday. I watched part of it, but I don't know. You can use water or earth mana for this. This makes sense for a frog because they spend part of their life in the water, part of their life on land, and the part of their life that they spend on land, they're also still in the water. A lot of them. I don't know if any are entirely on land. Hey, Holly, how you doing? Thank you for that. There you go. If you're in a pinch, take the seed. If you can wait, take the nut. Or maybe that's that long. So the nut is the long term energy, like the game beyond, not the game beyond the game, but when squirrels are hoarding acorns, they're doing so for the winter, for a season when they're not going to be access. Plant the seeds for spring and the nuts for winter. Next, we have a seed pod squire, which is a bird scout, water or light, basic. Whenever seed pod squire attacks, target creature you control without flying gets +1/+1 until end of turn. If you think he's loud now, wait until he starts the battle song. Clement, pessimistic adventurer. Girl, what the freak? How do we go from exciting times outside to now the? Oh, I mean, we saw Balin earlier. If you think he's loud now, wait till he starts the battle song. Oof. See, and they both have that element of water. So, but water is a conduit, right? Is there anything water wouldn't know? Clouds form high in the air, and moisture condenses around whatever until it falls as rain. The oceans are full of rain. Are full of rain. I guess maybe. Are oceans full of rain? Or is it just like full of water? I wonder. I don't know. I don't know the history of our oceans to know if, like, at some point, Earth was like more solid. And then over the course of thousands of years, atmospheric phenomena caused rain to, or caused rains that wore away rocks and land masses to form gigantic pools where the water collected, and then a billion years later you have an ocean. Or if our planet, no, what, I don't, right? According to creation, yes. our planet could have come into being with oceans already on it. But I don't know if there's a scientific, natural, like if a planet comes into being just like already having an ocean. Right. Can you scientifically prefab a planet? um anyway, even like the rains that wear through rocks or the rains that penetrate the soil, water goes in a lot of places. And so that element of communication could be there. High stride. Target creature gets +1/+3 and gains reach until end of turn. Untap it. Whoa. You could tap it and untap it. That's crazy. It takes a moment to find your stride, but once you do, you'll feel like a giant. Briscoe, River Guide. Was that Alaska? It was Alaska. Where's this going? Maybe that's the difference. Nuts have seeds and seeds are seeds. Yeah, because the apple seed isn't the apple. Or the apple isn't the apple seed. The apple holds the seeds to the apple trees. So the nut holds the seed. It, in and of itself, is not a seed. But all nuts hold seeds then. I don't know if this is relevant. Again, through the lens of things that I know slash have been exposed to. That audiobook series, there was a point in this series where you get stable versus unstable Genesis energy. Unstable Genesis energy is obviously like not to be interacted with. You don't want to absorb that into your body because it's unstable, right? The people could only see it for the power that it held, but didn't get the whole unstable part of it. Someone, so that ended up badly. The person turned into a monster. Someone took unstable energy out of an unstable place and into a stable place, and that turned that person into a monster. It's like the unstable energy within a zone, a realm, an environment of instability is only dangerous if personally interacted with, ingested, whatever. The unstable energy in a stable zone environment immediately falls into chaos, whether ingested, interacted with directly or not. The stable energy is stable in both unstable and stable environments. And the stabilized Genesis energy can be used to create things, or it can be used as a power source or whatever, with less of the being consumed by the energy or power of the unstable power. But there were certain powerful weapons that could be used to channel that unstable energy for as long as they could withhold it before they also fell into a disrepair. And maybe that's like, you could say, even within investment strategies or with running a business, or with people as they grow. It's like there are certain growth periods where you can make drastic, unadvised, ill fitted to a stable environment, to like a different phase. Like you can take those risks and chances, and there's a higher chance that they'll pay off because of the phase of growth that the thing is in. But once something has stabilized, it's not necessarily wise to do the same. I'm trying to, it's fine. Next, we have Starlit Soothsayer, which is a bat cleric that I think I've also seen. At the beginning of your end step, if you gained or lost life this turn, surveil one, which means you can look at the top card of your library and put it into your graveyard if you don't want to play it next, or if you don't want it to enter your hand. What? The lunar paean is upon us. Let us turn to our ancestors for guidance and look to our children for hope. We have another. Like this one's a soothsayer. The other one was a prophet. Is there much of a difference? I like to Google. Paean. A song of praise or triumph. A thing that expresses enthusiastic praise. Paean?
Paean.
It sounds like someone saying maybe like not pain with an accent. Paean. The lunar paean is upon us. Let us turn to our ancestors for guidance and look to our children for hope. So now I'm looking to the fountain port, right? The frog prophet says that the rains bring news of exciting things happening in the outside world. The bat cleric or the bat soothsayer says that the lunar paean is upon them. Look to the ancestors for guidance and the children for hope. I go to the fountain port that as a port is connected to multiple areas. Fountain port also, in a way, because of that, gives me the energy of the library from the magicians, and how in the courtyard of the library there are fountains that lead to other worlds. So it's like a nexus. These gateways and portals to other worlds. Each world has like a fountain. I almost want to put the squirrel. Yeah, because the squirrel in the cash grab was going to pay Balin. The squirrel pays a cost to access certain functionalities of the feature of the fountain. The squirrel pays a cost to access certain features of the fountain. The squirrel pays Balin extra to do whatever. And then you have these clerics and soothsayers, prophets, on the in these other spaces and arenas that are like getting news of something. Might of the Meek. Target creature gains trample until end of turn. It also gets +1/+0 until end of turn if you control a mouse. There are no mice. Draw a card. Fear is unavoidable. You can run from it with your tail between your legs or charge it head on with sword in hand. I prefer the latter. Row, a veteran hero. So we have another veteran. Oh, look, it's a snake. And we're in the year of the snake. Imagine this snake thinking it's about to get a meal that it ain't even going to have to really fight for. And that mouse is a veteran hero. That mouse is about to slice and dice. Might of the Meek. Get it? Because it's a snake. Because it's a snake. Oh, yeah. I don't know what's happening. Vanessa Carlton. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. I was thinking Vanessa Hudgens. um, this Might of the Meek energy is that's what the divine supplies. That's the power of love to um, empower the mother, the brother, the father, the sister, the power of love, the love that empowers the, the loved one to do the miraculous. There you go. That came out earlier. It was linked to purpose, right? With the mentor, with the other hero, the other veteran hero, who grows more powerful the more loved ones are in their charge, right? Then we have banishing light. When banishing light enters, exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until banishing light leaves the battlefield. If you cannot find light in the darkness, create it. Oral, a high cleric. Is this a bat cleric? This looks like a bat cleric that's using banishing light. Imagine. Is that not a bat? Look at the wing holding the staff. That's a bat cleric, right? And we already have a bat cleric and the Starlit Soothsayer. If you cannot find light in the darkness, create it. Immediately after Might of the Meek. There was an energy when Might of the Meek came out that gave it was like it was an energy of like the birth of a new hero or the coronation of a new king. But none of these cards necessarily point to that hero. So that's why I didn't really say anything because I'm looking at the cash grab, which was the first one that came out. And it's like the cash grab is hiring, paying for services. Balin is the hero of the rabbit people. We have the frog people and the bat people who are getting prophecies and word news of something exciting that's happening. But even the mouse in Might of the Meek, like that's a veteran hero. And with that banishing light card, if you cannot find light in the darkness, create it. The creation of light in the darkness is the diadem. I want to say it's like the coronet, maybe. It may be coronet. Something like Coronis was coming to my mind. But coronet may be the word. It could be also. How do you pronounce this word?
Coronet.
Coronet, yeah, okay. I didn't know if it was like a kernel type situation. Corona. Right? A part of the body resembling or likened to a crown. It could be the corona of a new king. In astronomy, the rarefied gaseous envelope of the sun and other stars. The sun's corona is normally visible only during a total solar eclipse, when it is seen as an irregularly shaped pearly glow surrounding the darkened disk of the moon. It's like in the darkness, if you can't find the light created, but it's like the light that's created is like this thing. It's like a corona or a coronet, and then I don't know, something like somebody lifts their head. So at first you just see like this line of light, right? And then it's like they lift their head. So you can see the crown and maybe their eyes are glowing. I don't know. It's the birth of a new hero, the coronation of a new king. The light that's created in the darkness is like the corona or the coronet or whatever. It almost gives the Ten of Fire in the Dreams of Gaia tarot. I think. Which is interesting because that Ten of Wands energy was the whole, sometimes it is someone's burden to bear, sometimes it isn't. And if it is one's burden to bear, then in their moments of greatest need, their courage, their strength or fortitude, their whatever they need will be doubled, if not tripled, if not quadrupled. They will have what they need to do what it is they must do. And it's not something that, yeah, it's not something that one can just like necessarily take on. Like it is, but it isn't, but it is. If the intention is truly there, then it would be. There are people who aren't the lover of someone in trouble who still manage to summon that strength because that's just their heart. Their intentions are pure and true. Their intention isn't to do this, enter this profession, to create this network, to gain this kind of prestige, to use that power, to use what is gifted and granted, bestowed upon them in some other way, shape, form, fashion, or arena. It's not the means to an end. Oh, we've been seeing that. I forgot about that. So this is the Ten of Fire. It's not necessarily that, but it kind of reminds me of that. But we've been seeing this solar halo thing in the back of someone's head for a hot minute. So I guess it is kind of that energy. And see, that is an evolution. Also, the light that's created in the darkness, that is exactly what that piezoelectric energy of 10 that we've been seeing in the past few readings is. Under pressure, something creates light. It creates light and it creates sound. We also see the sound over here. If you think he's loud now, wait until he starts the battle song. The battle song is the sound produced under pressure. This vanishing light is the light, obviously. The last card in the booster pack is Thought Shucker, which is a rat rogue. Put a +1, so it has a threshold of 1. Put a +1/+1 counter on Thought Shucker. and draw a card. Activate only if 7 or more cards are in your graveyard and only once. Many rats have found their minds while lost in the mud-slicked gyre. Gyre? I've never known how to pronounce that word. Of a snail shell. Is this our hero? I was a little hesitant to call the thought shucker, the rat rogue, a hero. Many rats have found their minds while lost in the mud-slicked gear of a snail shell. I know if you put an R or O on the end of it, it's like gyro, like a gyroscope. The swirl. It's interesting that this didn't come out when all of the other stuff was coming out. The only reason why I would say not necessarily is because of the high stride card. It takes a moment to find your stride, but once you do, you'll feel like a giant. Right? So, after a point of significant change, difference, evolution, it's like you get used to, accustomed to your new strength, your new body, your new gifts, skills, abilities, whatever. After you get comfortable, that almost goes back to, was it Transcendence 21? It almost goes back to the like knowing slash finding your limits, and then the dragon that was immediately like expanding into higher consciousness or whatever. Right? Like with the banishing light, it could be someone who gets like really good at finding the light in the darkness, who can always find the light in a darkness. We saw the abyss yesterday, the abyss in Pluto, and there was the hand in Pluto that was reaching for the light that Pluto was revealing, but then there was like the abyss beneath it, right? And that was the like when you go so far inside that you reemerge outside, or you find that second interface where we can really affect the world around us. At some point, the banishing light goes from finding the light in darkness to again like creating it. Maybe the rat is our hero. We see the mouse veteran hero. And I say that because of kind of sort of how the video ended yesterday. Um, where some stuff can be performative. It is, but it isn't, but it is. It's what we think high vibrational looks like. It's what we think a good person is. It's what we think a good boss, a good manager, leader. It's what we think someone who is smart, someone in a position of authority, whatever. Like we have these ideas of what something looks like. And when we are pursuing a certain path and when we feel like we've made it, we can become the embodiment of what we imagine the paragon of those ideals to be, rather than us truly being who we are, right? And it's something that we can do unconsciously with the best of intentions. Um, but that's not necessarily who we are. And it's not necessarily who we were created to be. So the rat has the mouse hero to like look up to and to model themselves after if they want. But because a rat and a mouse are related, I'm assuming they're not like long distance separated on the evolutionary whatever that just look really similar. Because like I looked up if seagulls and pigeons could have like if they could crossbreed, like how a lot of dogs can crossbreed, and the internet was like dogs are pretty similar due to different mutations and different things. Like they look different, but they're all pretty similar. Birds, however, their evolutionary lines separated like millions of years ago, or however many years ago. So, although they may look similar, they diverged a long time ago and are no longer genetically compatible. So, assuming that's not the situation with mice and rats, the rat can look at the mouse and try to follow their example, but the rat isn't the mouse. The the spiral that is the mud slicked gyre of the snail shell could be the whole trying to embody the ideal of something rather than living the truth of it, rather than this thought shucker. Maybe that's why it's the thought shucker, right? It shucks its own thoughts and it shucks its true intuition and discernment because it sees this veteran mouse hero as the ideal. Look at the mouse that took on this huge snake single handedly with a blade smaller than a toothpick. Like, that's what a hero is. Like, I want to be like that, right? I'm a little bit like, I'm just a really big rat, or I'm a really big mouse, or whatever, right? But I'm the same as the mouse. It shucks its own individual thought in order for, or in favor of what it sees as whatever. But at some point, when it's lost on that spiral, it will find itself. It will find its own mind, its true mind, rather than the collection of thoughts, the mind that is the collection of thoughts, ideals, impressions, and all other stuff about what something is supposed to be or what something looks like. And in that moment, there's the moment of realization. There is the path and journey, and then there's the accomplishment, right? Thoughts from thought shucker to high stride to vanishing light. And in that moment, that's when the birth of the rat hero, the coronation of the rat king becomes a thing, right? We have Balin of the rabbits, and we have the mentor who used to be the Balin of he's like the retired rabbit hero. We have the mouse hero, and then the prophets of the bat folk and the frog folk. We have the squirrel that goes to the fountain port in search of something, someone, something, and someone. So now I almost wonder if this is a confluence of events, right? It could be that the the squirrel folk are in search of someone to do something, right? They find Balin, who was mentored by the Beauregard mentor. And not even talking about a rabbits and hare situation. Um, and then it's like somehow the thought shucker gets roped into participating, the thought chakra does everything that the veteran mice hero would do, right? Maybe the veteran mice hero was a mentor to the rat, to the thought chakra, but ultimately it comes down to the thought chakra to find their own, I almost want to say brand, which is interesting because of the audiobook I'm listening to. At some point, I don't know if this occurs during the endeavor, if the endeavor is a catalyst, or if it occurs before the endeavor. And the endeavor is like the grander revelation of whoever this is, right? She's also giving me like tarantula and spider, from more so tarantula from the wild unknown animal spirits. How it's like a spider, but because their biology is so different, they like operate differently. They find themselves, their true path. This is also the energy of the hermit for me. Um, the hermit, I mentioned how like the fool can take multiple hermit trips in its path, and every time the fool hermits, they go deeper and deeper. The hermit first takes the light of the hierophant into their depths, and they explore and they do whatever. There's a certain, like, let's say the depths are 3 levels deep. The light of the hierophant can like 75 to 90% accurately illuminate the first layer. And the second layer, let's say it goes like 20 to 50%. And then the third layer is like 0 to maybe like 5, 7, 8%. At some point, the hermit has to trade the light of the hierophant for their own light. They find the star that is within them, the light within them. They find their specific connection to the divine outside of what the hierophant provides. And when they find that, they see that like remaining 20 to 10% in the first layer that the light of the hierophant just couldn't illuminate. In the second layer, they get up to, like, let's say instead of what was it, like 20 to 50, they go all the way up to like 70 to 90%. And then in that third layer, the illumination goes from like 0 to maybe 8% up to 25 to 65% with their own light. Then, as they're exploring, there's an even deeper understanding that they come into. You could say that's where they touch the divine. And like most of everything is completely illuminated. There may still be some things that aren't illuminated because they're to be like matured into, right? And again, that's the high stride. It takes a moment to find your stride, but once you do, you'll feel like a giant. Um, and that when they're like illuminating the deeper parts, that's when they come into this whole banishing light. They find their own corona of light. And I love that it's a corona, not for, 2020 reasons, but I love that it's a corona because it captures both the semblance to a crown and also that gaseous halo but over the sun. So we get both of those energies in one, in that corona of light. So cool. Take it as it resonates if it resonates. This could apply to a business. Let's say that your career has been whatever your career has been, and for a long time you followed like traditional, outdated practices. Maybe you worked at a place that was like outdated and you had a more modern approach. So you learned the old, you have information on the new, and then you go to a new company who's in like dire straits, right? Now you can play to the old playbook and bring a moderate amount of success to the company, or you can put everything that you've learned, like put your own twist on everything that you've learned, apply your own knowledge and your ability to observe the situation as it is. And then like you're this like rock star hero, you save the company, everything like turns upside down, right? You could apply it in so many arenas and areas and aspects. You can apply it to like relationships, right? Let's say that you were used to a certain role in relationships, or you were used to a certain type of person, and that caused you to go on your own little healing journey. And then you start to meet and attract people who support who you are, like that healed, whole, healthy version of you. And in the presence of those people, you blossom into who you like truly are. Or you find a higher like tier of relationship where it goes beyond you just like being that healed version of you, right? Because that healed version of you is kind of a function of the past. It gets you in the direction of like truth and authenticity and where you want to go, but in favorable conditions you can truly blossom and open up, right? It's like the difference between the rose that blooms in concrete and the rose that blooms in the lush garden, right? You can bloom in concrete, you can be this beautiful rose, but ultimately your growth is kind of limited by the amount of nutrients, even if you can grow, even if you do. But then to be in the environment that supports growth is to truly experience that growth. So take it as it resonates. If it resonates, where it resonates, and if it don't resonate, don't take it. If it does, apply a heaping amount of discernment. Let's get 2, 1, and what? Huh, well, there you go. It's the quote unquote title card. That's our final card. Bottom of the deck is the cash grab. The cash grab, with this, again, you can be doing something for a specific purpose and reason. This almost goes back to, I don't remember what that reading was, but it was the one that's like, there's what you get out of doing something, and then there's what the world receives from your efforts, right? You could be doing something for your own purposes and reasons, or thinking that you're doing it for one reason. Then circumstances, situations could come up, life can steer you in a direction where you can apply that in a completely different way. And it may not be what you thought it would be. It may not play out how you thought, but if navigated properly, it can end up being much better. But again, also use your discernment, because it may be a distraction, right? In some ways, ultimately we are the ones that decide if something is purpose, or there's a part of it where we are ultimately the ones that decide if something is purpose or a distraction. But then there's another part of it that is like actually like for, it's the divine support that's given to those who are operating within their purpose. And if not operating within their purpose, operating with true intention, right? It's, yeah, that's it. I don't have to go into it. It's fine. Yeah. So thanks, Holly, for stopping by. This is whatever this was. That's the final booster pack that I completely forgot about. I hope you all have an amazing whenever you see this. I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. I hope that whatever you need along your path journey will you find. And until next time, keep doing your best, I guess.